Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Alumni's Den. He's an accomplished denning graduate from the class of 2018. Like many others, soon after completing his LLB honours from the University of London's external programme offered here at Denning, he paved his way into the industry to polish his craft as a potential lawyer, working under the leadership of extremely esteemed names like Khalid Anwar and Co. and leading sole proprietors like Gibran Nasir. Soon after, he smoothly transitioned into in-house practice with equally celebrated names like Lucky Cement Limited. He's a corporate and commercial lawyer by profession and is currently pursuing his Masters in Law with University of East London's external programme. Today, he's sitting with me, serving in the capacity as a legal counsel at one of Pakistan's biggest FMCG conglomerates, FrieslandCampina Engro Pakistan Limited. Covering a wide array of expertise, from litigation, corporate advisory and governance, company law, transactional advisory and regulatory compliance, and also non-conscientious dispute resolution. It is my absolute honor to not just host but also engage in an absolutely enriching discourse with Mr. Syed Mohammad Raza Zaidi here at the Alumni's Den. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam, ma'am. Thank you so much for such a generous introduction.
Not at all, you deserved it. Raza, it's going to be a free-flowing conversation for our audience because most of them have picked up law coming from absolutely no background related to law. They were A-level students picking up something or the other under the pressure, or things didn't go their way when they picked up medical sciences or engineering. I'll take you back in your days. How did it all start off? Take us back to your senior high school years and tell us, was law always a dream? Was it something that was running in the family? Something that you had at the back of your mind? Back in your days, we believe there were not even good law schools to rely on. So just take us through your journey as starting Raza Zaidi as a student of O or A level.
देखें जैसे आपने एग्जांपल दी उन स्टूडेंट्स की कि who were forced into the law or who were planning to do something else but law found them in eventually. So that is my case as well. I could call myself as an accidental lawyer because law was never my first preference. I wanted to study economics during my A-levels, but the University of London's external program appealed to me in the sense that it was a 3-year degree, it was an international degree, and law was always a topic in my household. My dad has a master's in international law from Switzerland.
Okay.
My nana was a lawyer as well in Punjab, but
family.
But I'm still a first-generation lawyer in the sense that I didn't inherit a firm or didn't inherit a network. So, but I picked up law because my nature inclined towards it growing up, and this is a subject that will be of great use to you even if you don't become a lawyer, in the sense you can doing a law degree would prepare you to enter the business world, to enter the marketing world, to enter HR, to enter a number of fields, because like you don't need a prerequisite to do law. Even if you do law, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stick to the law.
Right.
I know a lot of people who did their bachelor's degree, who got an LLB degree and then went on to do an MBA, and now they're business professionals, but their law background helps them a lot in their day-to-day tasks, because once you have a general understanding of the regulatory infrastructure in your country, then you can navigate it better as well. So looking back at it, it seems like I planned to do the law, but
it
was inevitable, but it really wasn't, and it was always my second preference. But I'm really glad that I did law.
And the first was
economics.
Towards economics and business. Okay.
Just economics. I always found it fascinating. I had it in my A-levels. I never studied law before I embarked on it in my undergraduate degree. And looking back, I'm satisfied that I picked law, since, it provides you with a number of employment opportunities. It hones your personality in such a way that you improve your thinking skills, your strategic ability to take decisions, and all of that would be of great use to you in your professional and your personal life. So,
Um, Taking you back a little, and when you were picking your law school back in those days, did the schooling or the academia come easy to you, or it was just this one element of 3 years that was intriguing? Denning was slightly fresh back in those days, and we cherish you as one of our alumni. But was it easy? Was it, some sort of convenient decision back in your mind that, there is a certain legacy at home. There are people who know about law. I can always fall back. I have that cushion. Or was it something that you consciously moved towards to have a career trajectory made in this particular field?
I don't want to embellish my record, and I don't want to come off as too prepared now after the fact. But looking back at it, I don't think that I put much thought into picking the degree I did, because we didn't have a lot of options in relation to which law schools we could attend. But the fact of the University of London's degree being an international one, and it would allow you to pursue a master's in any country you wish. You could work in the Middle East, and you were getting a standard of education that was regulated by the UK educational authorities, as is the case for O and A levels. So those were the most appealing factors for me. With reference to our conversation that we were having a few minutes ago, when I started studying the law, we didn't have Denning. We didn't have a lot of law schools. So we only had one or two. And everyone who was studying to becoming a lawyer was either taking the local 5-year degree, or they were picking one of 2 or 3 colleges that were offering the external program. So I'm very proud to see how far Denning's come, because when I started becoming acquainted with your leadership back in 2015 or 16, they were operating in a very how would I say?
Conceited, a small setup.
A small setup. It was the nucleus was there.
The nucleus was there.
Everything else wasn't. So, I'm really happy that now that Denning is an established institution, that students have the option of coming to a place that looks after their education and their professional journey. I wish that we had a career development department, or we had these visits by leading lawyers who could advise students on what to do, what not to do, what to pursue, what type of law to look at. But that's why I also said yes to coming on this podcast, because I am always eager to help anyone out. And if this could be of use to any lawyer starting out or anyone considering to do the law, then it would be a privilege for me to help them.
It's always a pleasure to engage with our own product, our own students who have seen the journey so far. And now obviously it's an evolved, I would still say that it's an evolving name. And there are a lot of goals to hit and tick off. When it comes to the core skill set and competence that a lawyer must have, and I have observed, doing a bit of research on your journey so far, that you have worked with very, very solid names. You have worked with Khalid Anwar & Co. You have worked with independent practitioners like Gibran Nasir. Was reference coming through somewhere, or your dad, or your family? Or was it something that, where you consciously applied to these law firms? Because it's not easy for a student of first year or second year, even a graduate, to simply get into, because obviously these are very, very solid names. These are big names. You need to have a legacy of experience to then be selected even as an intern by these law firms. And now, since we are in the process of putting things in line for students when it comes to career placement opportunities, back in your days, how flourishing this element was. Was it easy to work under one of the litigators, leading litigants or corporate lawyers, and just, be working there as an intern, having a good scope of work, getting the training that so many others couldn't, get the privilege of? How was the vocational development at that time?
So I wish that I had a network or I wish that I had a reference that could get me directly into these places, because that would have made life a lot easier back in the day. But I will lay bare my complete journey on this podcast so that the people starting out have an accurate idea of how difficult it could be as a first generation lawyer who doesn't have a network of lawyers to get into a top firm or a top company. So I knew Gibran because I worked at his NGO during my law degree.
Right.
So
Okay.
that was the next
way
logical
in.
step was to work with him. And then when I was transitioning to another firm, I wanted to go to Haider Mota.
Yeah.
But they didn't have a place, they didn't have any vacancies, and I just sat in the reception just trying to negotiate with the receptionist कि चलें आप internship का पूछ लें partner से, senior partner से बात करा दें, एक दफ़े मिलवा दें. And I sat for a few hours in the reception area which is when Jhanzeb Awan Saab, who was one of my first mentors,
Yes, yeah.
took me in, offered me a 2-week internship. So it started like that. वो 2 हफ्ते से 4 हफ्ते की internship हुई. They still didn't have a place at Haider Mota. Then he referred my CV to Khalid Anwar and Company, where I had to pass through about 4 or 5 rounds of interviews.
Huge name. Yeah.
And then land a job there. And I worked there for about 2 years. And I trained directly under Mr. Rashid Anwar, who is also another mentor. He's been
Yes.
very kind and generous to me throughout my journey. But I believe that success in the legal field, like success in other fields, is dependent on your ability to network and create relationships and create a lasting connection to the people leading this industry for a very long time. And fresh lawyers or students should focus not just on their studies and on their extracurricular activities, they should focus on building a network of professionals that can help you in your career later. Because these firms, they're a very tightly knit community, everyone knows everyone. And if you become well acquainted with a partner at a firm, he can introduce you to other partners, they can introduce you to people who are in-house, and slowly but surely you will build a network of professionals that will buttress your career. And that is something that a lot of people don't do. A lot of people are introverted, a lot of people are shy, a lot of people are even scared to put themselves out there, but that is a great hindrance in their ability to flourish. You need these people. ये बड़े लोग हैं जिन्होंने यही वाली चीज़ें हमसे बेहतर और हमसे पहले की हैं, इनसे ही सीखने को मिलेगा. And it is incumbent upon you to try to include them in your network, क्योंकि बाद में यही लोग आपके फ़ायदे आएंगे और हो सकता है आपके दोस्त भी बन जाएं. A lot of mentors that I have, Sohail Qasim Ali हैं, Miss Hania Haroon हैं, at Ali and Associates, Mikhail Rahim at MTC, they're also my friends, in addition to being a part of my professional network. And even though I had to figure a lot of these things out by myself, lucky maybe a friend of mine sent my CV, and then I got called in for an interview. Friesland maybe I met someone who, during my time at Lucky, I was working with a lawyer whose husband sent in my CV at Friesland, then I got an interview here, and all of these things, every job that I've ever worked at has happened through a network that I built.
Yes.
I wish that it was handed down to me so that I wouldn't have to,
Excellent.
jump through all of those hoops back at that time, but I'm glad it didn't. I'm glad that I did it myself, just so that I can paint an accurate picture for the students coming up. If you are a first generation lawyer, and if you don't have a network of professionals, it will be difficult. It will be worth it eventually, but it will be difficult. And you have to, जैसे देखें Denning है, you call senior partners to address your classes all the time. This is a great utility that not a lot of people have, कि आपकी इंडस्ट्री के एक्सपर्ट्स आपसे आके आपके क्लासरूम में मिल रहे हैं, तो आप उनसे फिर establish a relationship with them, maybe visit their firm. I remember doing about 4 or 5 internships during my law studies, और वो वाले जो connections बने थे वो अभी भी हैं. So that is what I would insist upon students to
But
do.
Raza, here I'll stop you. Now you did that successfully. I don't know whether you are at the very core an introverted personality or an extrovert. Now that is also a question that comes very staple on my desk, that Miss Mehto, I'm a very introverted. I don't know whether I am in this particular qualification. I'm enrolled here, but I'm very introverted at the heart. I'm a very introverted person. I don't know how enterprising am I supposed to be in order for me to accelerate. So one thing is that, is it important? Do introverts still have a chance? Secondly, how to create this networking camaraderie when it comes to the law firm, because these senior partners and partners at the firm, the senior management of any law firm is not that approachable when it comes to the interns. So how to, I mean, is brushing up on your performance the only gateway to get their, attention? Or there is any certain strategy that you followed that we can also take note of?
देखिए आपने काफ़ी सारे सवाल एक साथ पूछ लिए, so I'll start with the introverted. The introverted, देखें, even if someone is introverted and even if someone is shy, they need to understand that if this is detrimental to their self-interest, then they need to develop a more robust or a slightly different personality for the workplace at least. In the sense that if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't make a name for yourself, if you're not impactful, then you will probably be forgotten.
Right.
And you can't be forgotten. You need to be in the conversation. Your name must be in the boardroom.
Certainly.
You must put yourself out there. And not a lot of people focus on this, but confidence is one of the few things that you can attain even if you fake it. If you fake being confident, then you're actually being confident. So this is one of the few things you can fake it till you make it. So introverts, I would like to say I'm an ambivert. People think I'm an extrovert, but I also think I'm an introvert. But introverted could have negative consequences for you in the workplace or in your networking abilities. So even if you are, it doesn't harm you to just get someone's number or build a relationship with them, especially when it जब आपकी बेहतरी इसी में ही है कि आप लोगों को जानें और अपने आप को भी इंट्रोड्यूस करें सबके साथ, एंड देन बाद में यही लोग आपको अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ का भी बताएंगे. And your second question was?
And my second question was particularly that how to channelize this networking game, because when these students go to HMCO and these big names, we have KNT, we have Khalid Saab, we have Heather Saab, Faisal Saab, under the leadership of, and we send them as interns, and they're very generous to accommodate as many interns throughout the year. These students generally have this particular issue of not being able to meet the most senior, or there might be, one occasion or two that they might surface. How to smartly, intellectually create this network and put a dent somewhere, even as an intern at a firm. So, because you're very right, interns and apprentices, they are the ones who eventually are chosen for permanent positions as well.
If they have permanent positions, but even if they don't, then the senior partner can refer.
Remembered.
So okay, I'll tell you how I did it, which is how they could possibly do it. But अगर उनके पास कोई बेहतर तरीका है, तो I would recommend कि वो कर लें. But when I would be interning, I would wait out in the hallway a lot. So I would know where the senior partner's office is. Excellent. And I would make sure that I meet him when he comes in and I meet him when he goes back home. Great. So I would get my 5 minutes of FaceTime with him twice a day at least.
That's fantastic.
So not a lot of people, these are simple solutions, right? You know कि दरवाज़ा यहाँ है, hallway यहाँ है, उनका office यहाँ पे. If you meet him somewhere here, you can maybe say hi. Next time you can maybe go to his office and ask for work directly. Maybe you can ask about his family, So it's things like these that you basically need a foot in the door. And once you're inside, then you can capitalize. Then you can find out commonalities. Maybe you guys know the same people. Maybe you guys have the same interest. Maybe you can start an interesting conversation that will leave an impact in the partner's mind. Certainly. And then, he will remember you. There are people that I haven't met, that I've interned with 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 years ago, that I haven't met since then. But I talk to them from time to time. They remember me, I remember them. कुछ के तो मैंने अभी नाम भी लिए हैं. Even if I haven't directly interacted with them in a long time, But because I've built a relatively meaningful relationship with them in the short amount of time that I was with them, so it's still they're a part of my network.
Yeah.
और जैसे आपने बात की कि a lot of senior partners and partners are not approachable with respect to interns and apprentices. That's true, unfortunately. Some aren't, but some are. और आप लोग जैसे बुलाते हैं डेनिंग में अपने पार्टनर्स सीनियर पार्टनर्स को लीगल हेड्स को अलग अलग जगहों की, तो यू कैन दैट्स आल्सो अ स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट कि चलो आई मेट यू एट डेनिंग और आप आए थे, मुझे आपकी स्पीच की ये वाली चीज़ बहुत अच्छी लगी. And law is one of those fields that I would always recommend. In addition to legal knowledge, non-legal knowledge is also very important. All right, you have to be a very
important point. Oh yes.
If you look at the people who are leading the industry in Karachi, they are much more than just lawyers.
They are literacies.
A lot of them write opinion pieces.
Yes,
a lot of them you can see them at conferences, at literature festivals. You can see them giving speeches on topics that are not related to the law at all.
Very important point,
So non-legal education is very important in this field because, number one, it makes you interesting. All right, if you're an interesting person, then people would want to know you.
Absolutely, there needs to be substance in the personality.
Yes, and you need to talk about a range of things. I remember at Khalid Anwar and Company, वहाँ पे एक partner थे Yusuf Naseem साहब, who studied philosophy before he studied law. And he also studied history, I think. So I think most of our conversations revolved, because I'm a history buff as well, so we mostly spoke about history instead of the law. But you have to acquire knowledge, you have to retain knowledge in non-law related fields. You can study politics, you can study international relations. I myself, I'm always studying history. I'm a big fan. You can study history or philosophy or any of these things to add more capacity in yourself to converse with people.
Yes, certainly.
All right? If you go to a senior partner and you ask him, okay, CPC का 7-11 में कौन सी केस लॉ निकालनी है, and he'll tell you that. But he probably won't remember you then, because everyone asks him the same thing.
Yes.
But maybe if you ask his opinion on the US involvement in the Vietnam War, which I actually did ask to someone who turned out to be a Vietnam buff, so that really helped in building a relationship with them, And a lot of these lawyers, you need to find common grounds, and you need to be interesting enough for the other person to actually engage with you. You don't, आप उनसे robotically advice ले सकते हैं about legal matters, वो robotically आपको दे भी देंगे. That is his expertise. But the art of conversation is something that a lot of people lack. And that is what they have to build upon.
Absolutely.
All right, you have to get things out of people. You have to share things from your side as well. You don't have to overshare. You don't have to pry into their privacy as well. But you need to get an arsenal of things that you can talk to them about.
Yes, certainly.
Just to make sure that you're not the only person who's having a fun conversation. They're also having a fun conversation. Because a lot of people, they're very interesting lawyers in Karachi, and everyone has a peculiarity. I know a guy who's a big fan of flowers. He likes talking about flowers. Most of these lawyers are big on philosophy, history, international affairs, international relations. And when you have a database of knowledge relating to that, you can come off as a very interesting person that the other person would like to talk to as well. सबको हमेशा काम की बात नहीं करनी होती, and I feel like when you're in the beginning years of your career, you're taking everything too seriously. The intern is the best dressed in the office. ठीक है, वो senior partner शलवार कमीज में होंगे, and the intern is in three-piece suit, just standing like a statue. So you have to holistically develop your personality, and that will take you a long way.
I have the luxury of speaking to the best lawyers and
aren't they very interesting people?
Litigators. Oh,
उनको वकालत के अलावा सब कुछ आता है. वकालत तो आती ही है, बाकी चीजें बहुत ज्यादा आती
I
है.
will quote what they say something or the other in the conversation, specifically these leading litigants, that ends up remaining with you for a very long time.
बिल्कुल.
And this is where your bit of, excelling the art of becoming a very fine conversationalist come in. that these people have said something or the other to me that to date, months later, a year later, 2 years, is still, it's there. And with this privilege of speaking with all these leading litigants, they said that, Adila, it's very important for someone who aims to pursue the field of litigator, of being a litigator, of litigation, of practicing in the courts, to be able to love the aura that they create around them. Because that is the thing that they need to rely on eventually. It is basically, it's a very difficult industry, it's a very rigid industry, it's a raw industry to be in, field to be in. But once you listen to your voice in the courtroom and the drama that you create and the signature that you leave behind and how, sort of enterprising you can be, how dramatic you can be while being there, presenting your case, different from, that differential element, that unique selling perspective is something that you will have to develop. You will have to attend all the fancy gatherings and networking gatherings. You will have to have a face value. You will have to get into media channels and shows and attend those shows. You can be called upon as a panelist. So your face value needs to be out there if you want to really set a mark when it comes to the field of litigation. You have been there, and this is a very, very, very staple and very repeated, and also a very pertinent question that comes to me. That, Miss, when to know which pathway to go to? And this is where I tell them that, a lot of personality assessment goes into it. More than anything else, you need to analyze, sit with yourself and then analyze your personality and then go for an experience or two and then put a finger on it. So when did you understand that you were meant for, you stepped into the shoes and practiced for some time also, you went to the courts as well, and then you moved and transitioned into the in-house side? Talk to me a little about this transition. And when students are supposed to pick their own specific areas, how should they do a bit of self-assessment to know that I'm meant to excel in the field of litigation, or I'm meant for the chambers or in-house practice?
Okay, so let's structure this conversation as
Yes,
such.
yeah.
First, we start off with the litigation and how to succeed in litigation, the nature of litigation, and then transitioning in-house and all of these
Yes.
things. Because a lot of these questions will
Yes.
be answered during this conversation. So, litigation is very tough, all right? It is a very demanding field, and it's not everyone's cup of tea.
Certainly.
You have very early mornings, you have very late nights, you have low pay, you have no benefits. And in addition to assessing your personality to see if you can succeed, you also have to do an assessment of your priorities. A lot of people have different things they want in life at different times. And once you're you have to be clear-eyed about going into litigation or corporate. You have to be completely, brutally honest with yourself. You have to see your family's finances. You have to see what you would like for yourself in the next few years. Do you want to get married? Do you want to move abroad? Do you want to go for higher education? All of these things, in addition to how your personality is, an evaluation of these things will lead you to an answer. Because if you do litigation, then you are sacrificing on time with family, you are sacrificing on your finances, you are sacrificing on your benefits. And the upside of that is you could be the next Makhdoom Ali Khan. You probably won't be, but you can. You can follow those footsteps. But these people have also sacrificed a lot. They had different
cost too.
If you are comfortable with the cost, and if you are comfortable with absorbing that cost in relation to not just yourself, in relation to your family, your parents should have expectations of you, your siblings should have expectations of you.
Foresightedness for this.
Yeah, your partner could have expectations of you. So are you willing to sacrifice those things to maybe become a very good litigator at some point in time? That's also not a guarantee. आपने जो अभी सारी बातें की थी कि कोई सीनियर पार्टनर और की बात कर रहा है और कोर्ट रूम में जब आपकी आवाज़ आप बोलें तो आवाज़ गूंजे और लोग सुने आपको, that's not the case though. If अगर you have to have a certain level of face value, तब जाके जज आपकी बात सुनेगा भी in the high court. You know, a lot of junior lawyers or a lot of even like senior associates, they're not given much leeway by the judges or the courts, in the sense that if a senior partner who is a third, fourth generational lawyer is up against them, there is a very high possibility that the other partner will speak for a long time as well. You can only make a mark if you are allowed to speak for a similar amount of time.
He's a very senior lawyer who's told this to me, and the fact that what he was trying to imply was that it's a very tough field, but the only things that keeps you on is the adrenaline rush that you get in the courtroom when you listen to your voice.
I agree.
And the aura that you create.
I agree. It's like
that is one thing. Otherwise, there's nothing. It's such a brutal and tough field to be a part of, to live it day in, day out, that this is the only thing that will keep them going. That is what he wanted
the
to
adrenaline rush.
Yes, the rush that you get.
So it's basically a drug addiction, isn't it?
You can say, yeah.
You know, it's the hit you get from a drug कि अगर आप साल महीने में 3 दफ़ा अपनी आवाज़ सुने कोर्ट में तो फिर वो बाकी 30 दिन they make up for it, which is fine. A lot of people are fine with that trade-off. I wasn't, and a lot of people won't be, depending on their family, personality, all of these things. But you have to be clear in your head that if you would like to do this for a substantial amount of time, then मैंने तो ये सुना है कि लिटिगेशन में आपका करियर 10 साल बाद ही शुरू होता है. ग्रेजुएशन के बाद आप 10 साल के बाद आप बोल सकते हैं कि you're a litigator, which is fine for some people. It wasn't fine for me, and it probably won't be fine for a lot of these Gen Z students coming in. So, however, I would like to emphasize the point that when you're starting your career, you should go into litigation. All right, for the first year or 2 years or even 3 years, your formative years in the legal industry should be spent at a good law firm that ideally does both corporate and litigation, so you get an understanding of both. And once you are trained at a good law firm, and once you've been to the courts, once you've read the CPC, once you have an idea of the procedures involved, these things will help you when you transition into corporate law or when you transition in-house. You know, once your fundamentals are correct, once you have an accurate idea of how the courts function, of when can you approach the High Court, when can you file a petition, what relevant sections or orders of the CPC govern a specific proceeding, then once you are in-house and you're liaising with your external counsels, your knowledge will help you. It will go a long way. तो पहले के कुछ साल आप कोई अच्छे लॉ फर्म पे गुजारें जहाँ पे लिटिगेशन और कॉर्पोरेट दोनों होती है, बट आई वुडंट रिकमेंड गोइंग इन हाउस इन द वेरी बिगिनिंग ऑफ योर करियर. एंड सम पीपल से कि वेरी बिगिनिंग मतलब 10 साल बाद इन हाउस जाना, ऐसे करके आई डोंट थिंक दैट्स ओवरकिल. 2 to 3 years in a good law firm is more than enough. If you're willing and able to learn and retain what you've learned. And all of these things will be put to great use once you transition to a different, if you transition in-house or if you go into corporate law. So,
students, this is a very good point that you raised, because from the sound of it, corporate sounds very appealing, and a lot of students without having an understanding of corporate law, and this is what again. Even Shahab Sahab, I was engaging in a conversation with him. He said that it's very important for students to get a flavor of litigation in the early. Pata to chale, what is city court all about? So they need to get that, into that drill. Having raised this point and let the students know that will they get an edge when they will be transitioning into corporate or in-house practice, if they have some litigation experience at first? Is it going to give them a certain edge over those who are completely inclined from corporate or in-house from the very beginning, that litigation is not going to be our cup of tea and we will not be able to do it, or there's a certain pressure from the family, this is not meant for us, we have completely shut our doors when it comes to litigation. So just keep us invested in the chambers. We will not be able to, go to the courts. Going to the courts and getting some, like you mentioned, for at least 2 to 3 years. At least 2 to 3 years working in a law firm that gives you the exposure of both sides. Is it going to eventually give that particular individual an edge when they will be transitioning into corporate and in-house practice? And also then speak to me about your transition.
Okay, so I'll give you a few examples. I have a friend based in Lahore who has been litigating for about 7 or 8 years now. But recently he wanted to shift to the Middle East, but they're discounting his entire 7 years of experience. So even though he's a partner at his own firm, he joined as an associate at a corporate law firm because he would like to transition to the Middle East at some point. And they're not counting your litigation experience because the litigation in Dubai or Saudi is completely different from how you do litigation in Pakistan. But if you had 7 or 8 years of corporate experience at a corporate law firm, then you would be in demand. So you have to you have to pick your battles, and there are pros and cons to everything. But if you do gain litigation experience, I'm not saying I would, even at Khalid Anwar, where I was primarily a litigator, most of the work I did was corporate, because if you work exclusively in litigation, then you will be in court every day, then you need new cases every day, then your cases need to be fixed every day. That is how you will keep yourself occupied for a month or for 6 months with pure litigation. Once you are in a law firm and you're handing out opinions to clients, that is corporate law. Litigation is exclusively researching, drafting, and going to court. And then just telling your client that hum haar gaye, hum jeet gaye, But इसका फ़ायदा ये होगा कि अगर आपने लिटिगेशन सीख ली थोड़ी बहुत, या उसका अंदाज़ा एक जनरल ओवरव्यू आपके पास आ गया, तो जब आप इन हाउस जाएंगे और आपकी कंपनी के केसेस होंगे, देन यू विल बी मच मोर डिफ़िकल्ट टू फूल एज वेल. Because I've also heard examples of external counsels trying to mislead their in-house counsels or their clients in the sense कि hearing पे क्या हुआ था या इस application में क्या defect था. जब आपको खुद थोड़ा अंदाज़ा हो कि काम कैसे होता है, filings कैसे होती हैं, अगर आप सुबह कितने बजे फाइल करोगे तो उसी दिन लग जाएगा, कौन से जज के पास favorable decision की expectation रख सकते हैं, तो ये वाली सारी चीज़ें आपको corporate से नहीं मिलेंगी. But on the flip side, if you would want to go to the Middle East, or if you would, like to work for a European company or a UK or a US company, then corporate law experience will come handy. Come in handy. That's why I was recommending that you go to a firm that does both, which is the best type of place to be at, unless if you really, really know you want to be a litigator or you just want to do corporate. And there's no harm in doing both, at least for some time. एक बहुत strict demarcation बना दिया इन दोनों fields के बीच में, but होनी नहीं चाहिए, and होती भी नहीं है. Like even if you,
understanding ही नहीं है ना, बहुत ज़्यादा हम लोगों ने,
it's either you litigate or either you do corporate. You can do both, and you should do both. And a lot of people, I know people who did litigation, did corporate, went in-house, went back to litigation, then went to corporate, and now they're in-house again.
These students don't right now, and maybe somehow or the other, probably it's our fault, we need to be slightly more clear. But that is what it is. They have been very, these two fields are polarized so strictly by us, or maybe in their minds, that they don't even know the clear distinction.
Yeah.
When they come to me on my table, I say that, do you even know the distinction? It is not just corporate. There will be elements of corporate which will require litigation. They will eventually be lawyers who will be presenting certain cases in the courts.
There's a field called corporate litigation.
It's a corporate litigation, It's something that they will have to be an entity that goes and takes that case and trial to the court. It's chambers work, it's desk work, it's working in the operations wing and working for that case, but not presenting that case in the courts. That is where you can call that, yes, I will be completely invested in the chambers work. So that is how you buy. So they don't even have the clear distinction. coming.
There is so much overlap as well.
So
Like
much
if you,
overlapping.
अगर आप competition commission के सामने appear हो रहे हैं, is that litigation or is that corporate? You know, who knows?
Who knows?
I have, even though I've been a litigator, I've never practiced criminal law. You know,
Absolutely. और वो
there are so many.
वो litigation wing में आता है.
हाँ, it's in litigation, and a lot of people would say if you haven't practiced criminal law, then you haven't done litigation.
Yes.
So there are so many fields that you can't compartmentalize
No, you
yourself
cannot.
so much that I will be a litigator or I will be a corporate lawyer. You have to do both. You could even do criminal. Well, that was never my interest, but so you have to take it as it comes to you, and you can't pigeonhole yourself, especially so early in your career. And a lot of these things are overlapping. Most of these things are overlapping.
So having like I mentioned, having a certain personality would play its role, would play its part.
Of course, you know, if
It
you
will,
are
right?
if you are extroverted, if you are loud, if you are confident, if you really want to make an impression, then you could probably do well once you get a day in court. You know, once someone actually listens to you.
Yeah.
यहाँ पे बहुत सारे मसले ये होते हैं कि आपका केस कभी आता ही नहीं है, ये डिस्चार्ज हो जाता है. वो तो खैर सिस्टम के फ्लॉज हैं, बट कुछ पर्सनालिटी टाइप्स डू एक्सेल इन लिटिगेशन, बट most of the top litigators that I know are muhtat tabiyat, introverted, you know, but they just speak very well and they research very well.
Okay.
So there's no one type of personality that could fit into litigation, and I think more than personality, your priorities matter, and your standing in life matters, and your goals matter. कि आप उस लेंस से देखें, ये नहीं देखें कि मैं बचपन में बहुत आर्ग्यूमेंट्स करता था तो आई एम अ गुड लॉयर. दैट अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल से कि मुझे तो वकील होना चाहिए था क्योंकि दे पिक फाइट्स और आर्ग्यूमेंट्स विद एवरीवन, which is if you watch Suits and you want to become a lawyer,
stigmas attached to
chale
the
that
profession, yes.
But more than your personality, more than everything, because your goals, the realities of life will supersede your personality. You know, they will mold your personality more than how you would like to mold your personality. So instead of exclusively focusing on the personality of a litigator, you should do an introspection about your own priorities and your own standing in life and what you would like from yourself in a few years from now. Or if you are willing to start your careers after 10 years, you know, when you're in your mid-30s, that's on you. So more than that, I think these things should be
What happened in
highlighted.
your case? How did the transition happen?
Transition from?
From working with independent practitioners and then moving to Lucky Cement and then
From law firm to
Friesland,
in-house.
yeah, in-house, yes.
So Khalid Anwar was, it was a privilege to work there.
Yes,
And
certainly, of course.
I would still like to say कि मेरी जो training हुई है वो वहाँ हुई है under Rashid Anwar साहब. And that was a very rewarding experience as well. But one should be clear-eyed about the standards in the industry, how law firms operate, what you can expect over the next few years, and you know, would you like to give so much of your life to a career? It's not just about a firm. You know, you are not just a lawyer. You are a human being.
Certainly.
And you need to have passions, and you need to have extracurricular activities. You need to spend time with your friends, with your family. You need to have more. You need to take more from life other than a job, right? And I came to the conclusion that I would not like to invest so much of my life into a career that could possibly not work out. या तो ये हो ना कोई लिख के गारंटी दे कि तुम पाकिस्तान के हाईएस्ट अर्निंग लिटिगेटर्स में से आओगे अगले 15 साल बाद. कोई लिख के भी नहीं देगा. या तो आपको पता हो that this is a right that will be given to you at some point in time. It's not. There is no certainty in litigation. जब ऑडिटर्स उस लेटर्स भेजते हैं वकीलों को कंफर्म करने के, तो वकील अपने लेटर हेड पर लिखा है there is never any certainty in litigation. So you have to be comfortable with placing a bet that a number of years of your life that you are investing into this field could maybe not work out in the way you would like them to do. You know, I know more than 2 or 3 people who were at good law firms, poured in about 6 to 7 years of experience into making their own law firm, 8 महीने, 1 साल, 1.5 साल struggle किया, and then they had to shut down their law firms. And एक को मैं जानता हूँ वो तो corporate law में चली गई, और एक और को मैं जानता हूँ उसने वापस किसी firm को join कर लिया. But उनकी expectations तो completely different थी when they started out their law firms. Not a lot of people talk about these stories as well.
Yes.
They only see the highlights, you know, और वो highlights को भी जब आप देखते हैं, you have to have a very honest conversation with yourself कि यार देखो ये बंदा इतना बड़ा वकील है तो look at his family as well. You know, उसका his father was a Supreme Court judge. You know, his taya is a High Court judge. All of these things. And yeah, so they're coming from a very well-established, very well-moneyed family that could support them not earning for such a long time, and then they overcame that obstacle and then actually started having a rewarding career in litigation. So
we have more depressing stories when it comes to litigation.
More depressing, that's life, you know. You should be clear-eyed about whatever you do. Don't go into the field of litigation or corporate thinking कि it's a bed of roses and, you know, बस मैं 5 साल ये करूँगा फिर ये होगा. आप ये एक actual जो सवाल आप ये पूछें अपने आप को कि PSO का कोई केस है या Shell का कोई केस है, बहुत बड़ा केस है, और there's a lot of money involved. ये बड़ी companies के तो billions of rupees होते हैं. You know, you are a new and upcoming lawyer. Why would they pick you over a ex-attorney general, senior Supreme Court advocate? You know, या तो आप एंड में वो फैमिली लॉ के केसेस या you know बेल मैटर्स करते रहेंगे, फी आप 25,000, 30,000, 50,000 लेंगे. You want the big fish, na? But why would they come to you? That's also fair, and that is something that you have to answer yourself. And then if you can see yourself making a space for yourself in the next few years, or in like 10 years from now, कि यार अच्छा चलो, I will work at a big law firm, make my own name, then maybe get 1 or 2 big clients, and then I can partner up with someone else who has 2 or 3 other clients, and then maybe we can start a law firm. Then you can go for it. But don't have a defeatist mentality about picking one realm over the other, because you can do all of them. You know, I was in litigation, corporate, now in-house. Future में देखते हैं क्या होता है. I like in-house. But you also asked about my transition.
Yes.
So when I transitioned from being an in-house, from being a law firm lawyer to an in-house lawyer, I had to change the way I thought, the way I advised. Everything changed. You know, when you are in a law firm, you have a very low risk appetite. Once जब आपसे एक client एक opinion मांगते, you could list every possible thing that could go wrong and that may never even happen. But that's how you think, you know. But once you are in an in-house environment, you transition from being a risk-averse lawyer to being a business enabler. You know, you have to support the business in whatever you have to do.
Yes.
Even if there are certain risks that have to be taken, you have to increase your risk appetite.
Certainly.
And be cognizant of the fact that the company will not stop functioning because of a thing that could possibly not even happen. You know, इतनी सारी risks वकील highlight करते हैं जो कभी होती भी नहीं है, लेकिन उन possibilities की वजह से हम काम नहीं रोक सकते. So you, more than a lawyer, you become a manager of people and a supporter of the business. You know, you have different stakeholders.
You become one of the stakeholders, you know.
You become one of the most important
the
stakeholders,
most important one.
And you have to report to the directors, the board, commercial people, marketing people. You know, they're trying to launch new campaigns. You have to tell them, okay, fine, you can do it, but take note that all of these things are a possibility, but I understand that this is very important for the company. It has to be undertaking. Well, when you're sitting in a law firm, you can just say no, right? A client comes to you for an opinion, you can say no, don't do this. You can't do that once you're in-house, unless of course अगर risks बहुत ही ज़्यादा हैं, but वो भी mitigate हो सकते हैं, but minor possibilities that could probably never happen, उसके लिए आप company को log jam नहीं कर सकते. You can't stop the company at all. So ये वाली थिंकिंग भी चेंज होने में थोड़ा टाइम लगता है कि आपको चलो ठीक है थोड़े बहुत रिस्क्स होंगे एक ट्रांजैक्शन में, बट इट हैज़ टू गो थ्रू. यू नो, you can't just say no. You have to support the company. You have to support the business. So that also builds you up for other fields as well. Then you can maybe look into becoming a business professional, or someone in marketing, or someone in consultancy, all of those things. So ये वाली चीजें भी बहुत आपको फिर help करेंगी.
So when you moved to Lucky Cement, what was the thought process? Why did you do that? Because you were slightly disheartened when it comes to litigation?
No, disheartened होने की क्या बात है?
Or you did not see yourself that नहीं, this is not meant for me?
देखिए, I had did litigation up till then, or not just litigation, but worked in a law firm for about 3 years when I switched in-house. तो तब ये था कि I wanted to get married. Getting married is very difficult to do if you're working at a law firm, क्योंकि आपको सुबह 8 बजे कोर्ट जाना है, आपको रात को 10-11 बजे तक रिसर्च करनी है. वो नहीं कर रहा. फ्राइडे को healthy personal life, हाँ, it's not. And you have to be honest with yourself about that if you are in a law firm, you're taking away a lot of time from your life to give into this, And I did that for a number of years, but then I made a decision that, why not? और मेरे दिमाग में भी तब मुझे बहुत लोगों ने रोका भी कि you're going in-house, what will you do? You should stay in a law firm, you're a good litigator, you can't leave this field. I left it and I'm fine. It wasn't such a big problem as people made it out to be, which is why it's very important to impress upon new students and new lawyers that इतनी कोई strict distinction नहीं है. आप move around कर सकते हैं, करना भी चाहिए. Don't make a joke of it, of course, but it's never set in stone कि आप litigation में गए हैं तो फिर आप उसी में रहेंगे या फिर.
But the work-life balance for you became one of the primary reasons for this switch, for starters?
देखिए, work-life balance है.
Or the offer was good enough?
Offer was fine. It was fine, but ये है कि work-life balance अच्छा है. You get some benefits from the company as well, fringe benefits. अब तो जैसे when I was leaving Khalid Anwar and moving in-house, तो when I was saying my goodbyes to one of the partners, तो उन्होंने भी मुझे बोलता है कि when he was doing law and when he started his career, तो in-house में इतनी opportunities नहीं थी जितनी अब आ गई हैं. और अब in-house की एक बहुत robust industry बन चुकी है यहाँ पे, वहाँ जहाँ पे you can have a rewarding career in relation to the law, and you can have some benefit from the company. You can have health insurance. Your wife and kids can have health insurance. Your parents can have health insurance. You can possibly get a car from the company. You can get fuel from the company. Yes. These things law firms cannot do. It's a far cry from their capacity. Yes. Even if they can, they won't. अभी कुछ time पहले तो इतना बड़ा उस पे हुआ था that all of that list was made कि who earns what at what law firm. ये अच्छी चीज़ है, ये होनी चाहिए क्योंकि इससे लोगों को they can make a well-informed decision. कि यार चलो ठीक है, तुम इस लॉ फर्म में 3rd year associate ये कमा रहे, are you comfortable with that? 10 साल बाद ये कमा रहे, are you comfortable with that? You have to ask these questions from yourself and honestly answer them. Then you'll have the answer in front of you.
And from time to time we think that we need to sort of refurbish this or revamp this compensation structure when it comes to the legal industry.
आप ये देखें कि जब ये वाला, you know what I'm talking about, right? जो कुछ महीने पहले या 1 साल पहले आर्टिकल लिखा था, फिर लोगों ने और अपनी 2 cents ऑफर किए थे, backfired. So उसमें आप ये रियलाइज़ करें कि उसमें जो कुछ वकील पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे थे, I hold them in very high esteem. And they're very big lawyers of Pakistan. They're leading lawyers. And they're good people as well. They're open-minded, Roshan Khayal wale log hain. But when it comes to these things, because they've been through that themselves, they find it to be fair to impose it on others as well. और आप एक clear distinction उसमें नज़र आ रही थी कि यार, if you are a 35 plus, 40 plus lawyer, you think one way and everyone other than you thinks the other way. It's a generational gap. Which is good to see in the sense कि चलो आज से 20 साल बाद ये वाले मसले नहीं होंगे, लेकिन उनकी भी ये रीजनिंग है कि जब हमारे साथ ये हुआ था तो it's only fair if you go through the same, even though it's really not,
No, of course not.
But
that is a very, I won't like to use this term, but somehow or the other it's a little hostile mentality, it's a way of thinking to imply the same on others, the struggles that you go through, that take a get some flavor of the same.
They have my sympathies, you know.
No, it
They should have
happens,
never
certainly.
had to go through all of those
No,
things.
but
They
now
can.
things and the course is changing. I'm glad. I'm witnessing very stark changes coming in play, especially when it comes to very structured vocational programs. These are law firms are very actively collaborating with the industries, with the education industry. Like people like you, they are very vested in helping the newcomers, young professionals, to make a mark somewhere in the industry. You know, to help them, to aid them. There are structured internship programs for months. There are proper stipends which are given, which I don't remember that back in your days you used to get or not.
I think I got 3,000 or 4,000.
Yeah. So now it's like, you know, there's a certain amount that is designated from the budget when it comes to these good law firms for interns. Coming towards the star competence and traits that, other than just academia and having a qualification, these students should constantly work on. What are the habits they should engage themselves in? Is reading extremely essential? Is research, like you mentioned, having, you know, a sort of a potpourri of interesting traits or interesting engagements for you to develop a differential personality that's slightly, you know, unique from the rest? What are the skill sets that one from the very beginning, let's say from the first year of graduation, first year of LLB honors, till the time they eventually graduate, then they must consciously work on developing if they want to stick in this particular field, be it litigation or corporate? But as a lawyer, as a whole, what are the skill sets that you should develop from a very young start in the undergrad years?
I'm sure everyone will have different answers to these, but
of course.
For me, first and foremost, the quality of your work is not negotiable. All right, anything that you work on, research, draft, or advise upon, उसमें आपको नज़र आना चाहिए कि आपने दिल लगाया है, कि आपने सही से, to the best of your capacity or ability, you have done what you can. You know, don't do it half-heartedly. जब आपका काम, आपकी competency establish हो जाएगी, फिर questions भी बहुत कम हो जाते हैं. You know, once people know that you have the capacity and the ability to formulate opinions, research opinions, give out advice on regulatory compliance, advice on big transactions, जब वो वाली चीज़ settle हो जाएगी ना, जब everyone knows that you can do it, then you come on to these star traits. The fundamental thing is the quality of your work should be impeccable, at least to the best of your abilities. You know, even if you're an intern or even if you are a first year associate, जो आप काम कर रहे हैं उसमें नज़र आना चाहिए कि आपने मेहनत की है और आपने कोशिश की है. You've tried your best and that is what people want.
Certainly.
और उसके अलावा, for a guy like me, people skills are the most important thing after your work, after the quality of your work. Because बेशक आप लॉ लिटिगेशन में रहें, फर्म्स में रहें, इन हाउस जाएँ, बाहर कहीं काम करें, you have to interact, you have to manage, you have to get information out of people. All right? इंसानों की साइकी समझना, लोगों से बात करने की तमीज़ रखना और लोगों को comfortable feel कराना, engaging with them, you know, that's very important. And some would even say that people skills or your soft skills matter more than your actual competency as well, which I have seen a few examples of, you know, in companies and in firms के यार ये बंदा मतलब काम तो इसका ठीक है लेकिन ये रहता सबके साथ बहुत अच्छा है, which is why he's succeeding in his career. So,
which is actually true.
Which is true. You see it everywhere,
Fact,
you know,
yes.
and if this is the truth, then you should use it to your advantage.
Yes.
You know, develop that capacity for yourself as well. So the art of conversations, people skills, you should read books as well. I always insist on people reading. Now so you can listen as well. I listen to a lot of podcasts too, and they've, you know, really helped me in gaining knowledge about a lot of things. But yeah, it's very important. You know, it's very important to hone up on your people skills. And ये सारी जो acquiring knowledge and retaining knowledge that will help you in your professional and personal life.
Excellent, because when I speak to a lot of and counsel a lot of students, I keep on telling them that, see, you are in the tertiary sector, right? You're in the service sector.
Service sector.
You're not making products, tangible products. You yourself is a product, right? And once you're delivering, then it's very important for you to be as sellable as possible. Why
Right.
should a company, why should a law firm, like you earlier mentioned, should invest in you? Why should they give you even a certain stipend for a week? Why? Question yourself. What is your tag? What is your selling price? What is your tag on yourself?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of there has to be a sort of a lot of, I think self-evaluation that needs to go from time to time in the process. These students who are just picking up the field of law and they bounce towards or fall back towards humanities. Why? Because they have been very unfortunate circumstances that or results and outcomes that they've witnessed when they were in the other fields of medical or engineering. They just bounce back. It's a secondary option. They need to understand this very, very categorically, that it's not going to be an easy ride for them to make a mark in these fields. It's not going to be easy. As a lawyer, students are also very intrigued to know, how does a life of a lawyer and now an in-house practitioner looks like? What time do you get up in the morning? What do you do? What are the habits that you engage yourself in? What is your lifestyle like? And in order for anyone to excel or move towards excellence in the field of corporate and in-house, what is something different that you do very consciously that these students of today who are very fascinated with the corporate side of corporate area of law should be slightly, prepared for?
These are again a few questions rolled into one, but
No, just talk about your lifestyle as a whole.
So
There must be something that you're doing, to set yourself at par from the rest.
I think ये जो हमने अभी पहली बात की थी about personality development and people skills, that those have really helped me go a long way. But if like अब तो खैर routine काफ़ी change हो गई है. My office is quite far from my house, so to get up a bit early, get to work soon, I emphasize a lot of time at home and spend a lot of time in the evenings with my family and stuff. But काम के लिहाज से तो वही जो the routine you have with the 9 to 5, and उसके साथ साथ you should have a hobby, you should play a sport, you should go to the gym, because all of these things will help you stay sane. Working out will help your mental health. It will help you put up with the pressure of working in a demanding field. You should maybe pick up paddle tennis. It's quite fun, or something of the sort to keep you busy. You should read. You should acquire knowledge, as I was saying. But जो आपने ये वाली बात की थी ना कि once you're in-house, so how does your work day look like? So you have numerous stakeholders. All right, you have your marketing department, you have the business, you have investments, you have tax, you have HR, and you are basically a dedicated resource for the company that has to manage your own time, and then you have to accordingly advise jitni bhi queries आएंगी. So I have found that there have been days or months where I've worked more when I've been in-house compared to when I've been at a law firm. क्योंकि जब आप लॉ फर्म में होते हैं, यू कैन गिव योर क्लाइंट अ 2-week टाइमलाइन, ये 2 हफ्ते बाद आपको ओपिनियन मिल जाएगा. बट वंस यूर इन हाउस एंड द पर्सन इज सिटिंग नेक्स्ट टू यू और ओवर देयर इज लुकिंग एट यू कि आप उसकी जवाब क्वेरी का आंसर कब देंगे. सो इट कुड गेट इंटेंस एट सम पॉइंट्स, बट यू have a lot of stakeholders that belong to a lot of different fields who may not understand the legal intricacies involved in every issue.
Right.
So you have to process and communicate information in such a way that people who come from a completely different socioeconomic background from you, who may not even understand the law,
Right.
उनको समझाने के लिए आपको अपनी कॉन्वर्जेशनल स्किल्स भी बहुत इम्प्रूव करनी होंगी, आपको अपना थिंकिंग भी चेंज करनी होगी, आपको बिजनेस को इनेबल करने के तरीके भी ढूंढने होंगे. आई लाइक टू इन्वॉल्व माई सेल्फ इन some commercial meetings as well, so that I have an understanding if you are a businessman or if you are an industry leader, so what considerations do you value the most, and how does your hierarchy of priorities look like, you know, because that will help you in performing as an in-house lawyer.
Right.
You know कि इनके लिए ये वाली चीज़ें सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट हैं. आप जब ये कंसिडर करेंगे तो ये वाली चीज़ों पे आप भी पहले फोकस करें, बिकॉज यू नो, अब जैसे आई विल गिव यू एन एग्जांपल. आई वाज a director of mine wanted to meet a lawyer about a certain thing. I'm trying to be as general as possible because you know. So I called up a lawyer. I called a lawyer to meet him, and I said कि यार आप ना जब मीटिंग के लिए आएँ तो ये वाली 3 चीज़ों पे रिसर्च करके अपने साथ रख लेगा, क्योंकि दैट इज़ व्हाट ही विल आस्क यू, एंड आई एम ट्राइंग टू मेक योर लाइफ ईजियर, राइट. और वो वही हुआ उस मीटिंग में. एंड में उन्होंने वही 3 चीज़ें पूछी, उनके पास वो केस लॉ भी था, तो everyone was very happy. But ये वाली चीज़ें आपको सिर्फ तब अंदाज़ा होगा when you spend time with these people, and once you converse with them and see what their concerns are. Or once you know that, then you can perform to a higher degree. In the sense कि फिर ये होगा कि अच्छा उनको लगेगा यार इसने तो अच्छा वकील ढूंढा जिसको ये आता था, जिसको पता था कि मैं ये वाला सवाल करूँगा, उसने फ़ौरन ही हमें एक कंक्लूसिव जवाब दे दिया. तो ये वाली सारी चीज़ें हैं. ये
it's very interesting. I think students should take note of the fact that, you know, it's going to be that, and this is what my mentors also teach me, that a lot of learning come in different, the nature of learning and education is very different. It's not just from the books that you read, it's from the experiences, you know, from a lot of trial and error. And failure, as we say, becomes one of the biggest and the most, you know, solid teachers that we can have. In a world of technological advancements now, we are moving towards AI, machine learning, chat GPT, and this is going to be the world that will eventually be tapping into and touching and changing almost every industry in the next coming decade. And so has the field of law and the legal industry got influenced by it. How do you see the practice being evolved because of the intervention of AI and ChatGPT, and how are you looking at this evolution now? The reliance has increased, things will eventually be easy, there will be a lot of human replacement that we can possibly see, we can anticipate in the near future. The same will go, and obviously a lot of lawyers say that still you would need the signature of a lawyer. You know, there will still be a certain level of human contribution that will be needed, but things have become a lot easier. You know, there are a lot of avenues out there where you just have to feed, and even the cases get prepared for you. So when it comes to these AI generational tools, these toolkits that have taken over every industry, how are you looking at it? Should we be fearful? How should we navigate our way through? How should we keep ourselves relevant as one of the leading lawyers in our country, and, you know, inshallah in future also? How do you look at it?
Oh my God. That's quite the compliment.
You're obviously pursuing the field, and you're making a mark for yourself. How do you look at it?
I would give that title to my mentors who helped me out a lot. But Pakistan as a legal industry is about 30 or 40 years behind the rest of the world. And ये वाले जो मसले हैं कि will lawyers be replaced by AI or all of these things, that is not upon us yet, at least, and that's not upon a lot of industries worldwide. You can see that big reputable law firms in the US or in the UK are incorporating their own versions of AI into their researching or their drafting. बट वो उन्होंने एक्सक्लूसिव सॉफ्टवेयर्स बनाए हैं जहाँ पे वो चैट जीपीटी पे डाल के नहीं कर रहे. और द प्रॉब्लम, चैट जीपीटी इज़ रेवोल्यूशनरी. आई वाज वन ऑफ द फर्स्ट पीपल in my group of friends to start using it. The problem with that has become is that people have started outsourcing their brain to it. वो कुछ भी करने से पहले चैट जीपीटी से पूछते हैं, उनको ईमेल लिखनी होती है वो उससे लिखवाते हैं, वो आई नो लाइक ड्राफ्टिंग में उसका इतना यूज़ करते हैं विच इज़ काउंटर प्रोडक्टिव. You have to use ChatGPT and AI to your advantage. You cannot outsource your thinking capacity to them or your competency to them, and you will not be replaced by AI. You will be replaced by someone who is using AI to perform better than you.
Yes.
क्योंकि
Very
अभी
well said.
कुछ टाइम पहले, I'm not sure if you know, अमेरिका में in I think it was the 9th Circuit Appeal Court or something. सुप्रीम कोर्ट से जो नीचे वाले होते हैं, वहाँ पे उन्होंने आई थिंक $80,000 की पेनल्टी लगाई थी एक लॉ फर्म पे, बिकॉज दे हैड फाउंड आउट दैट दे यूज्ड चैट जीपीटी इन ड्राफ्टिंग देयर सबमिशंस, और उसके अंदर फिक्टिशियस केसेस थे दैट जो कभी कहीं एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं करते. उसने बस हलूसिनेट करके वो केस डाल दिया, वकील ने बगैर देखे उसको कॉपी पेस्ट भी कर दिया, सबमिट भी कर दिया, और फिर उसका लाइसेंस सस्पेंड हो गया था, एंड द फर्म वाज पेनलाइज्ड अबाउट $80,000 or $100,000 कि ये आप लोग क्या कर रहे हैं. तो आई नो कि लोगों को बहुत शौक है कि AI से अब तो ये हो सकता है लॉयर्स की ज़रूरत नहीं है. दैट्स नॉट ट्रू. दैट कुड पॉसिबली बी ट्रू फॉर कंटेंट राइटिंग और सम ऑफ दीज फील्ड्स, बट आई थिंक लोगों के पास अब इतनी अवेयरनेस आ चुकी है दैट दे कैन डिटेक्ट एन AI ड्राफ्टेड रिस्पॉन्स और एन ईमेल. वो खुद अंदाज़ा हो जाता है. सो प्लीज़ डोंट एम्बैरस योरसेल्फ एंड यूज़ इट. यू कैन यूज़ इट फॉर इंस्पिरेशन. यू कैन आस्क इट अ क्वेश्चन, सी व्हाट इट सेज एंड देन राइट इट इन योर ओन वर्ड्स. बट ब्लाइंड रिलायंस तो आपको किसी चीज़ के ऊपर नहीं करना चाहिए. जहाँ तक ये बात है कि लीगल इंडस्ट्री कैसे चेंज हो रही है, उससे हमारा CPC 1908 का है. हमारी बहुत सारे कानून are not even from the 20th century, they're in the 19th century. So a lot of things will have to change and get fixed before we can start worrying about AI like that. और वकीलों का भी I doubt कि wholesale replacement होगी उनकी, but this is not a problem for right now, at least in Pakistan.
Students are actually basically
मसला ये होता है
simulations create हो रही हैं basically ना. So there are generative AIs which are very well intertwined and they are made very signatured and specific to certain case laws. So the archives and the resources are already being fed, and that is how the AI actually creates a response and on the prompts that you give them.
देखिए you can अच्छा सो चैट जीपीटी स्पेसिफिकली के तो जो फाउंडर थे आई थिंक सैम ऑल्टमैन और समवन, बट द कंपनी दैट मेड इट, उन लोगों ने खुद अपनी स्टेटमेंट में कहा है कि ये हलूसिनेट कर जाता है कभी कभार. ऑलराइट,
सो यू नीड ब्रेन्स टू इवन रिलाई ऑन इट.
हाँ, वो एक तरीका है मतलब आप उसमें से इंस्पिरेशन लेके अपनी क्रिएटिविटी को हेल्प कर सकते हैं, बट यू कांट जस्ट रिलाई ऑन इट होलसेल लाइक दैट.
बिल्कुल, एब्सोल्युटली. Raza, do you remember any memorable case over the years that you have worked on, something that has stuck with you for a long time and became your source of inspiration? Or who do you consider your source of inspiration? Who do you look up to? What are the plans which are next for the next few years of your life as a lawyer?
देखिए, I look up to my mentors. उसमें से my parents, my family, wife, siblings, all of them. And then lawyers such as Jahanse Baban Sahab, Rashid Anwar Sahab, Sohail Qasim Ali Sahab, Ms. Hania Haroon, Mikhail Rahim, जो अब मेरे दोस्त भी हैं और नेटवर्क का हिस्सा भी हैं. तो उन लोगों से इनकी mentorship has really taken me a long way. क्योंकि how else will you find out about things unless if you talk to someone who's been through them or who's experienced them or who is a leading player in the industry जिसमें आप अभी शुरू कर रहे हैं. और memorable cases तो काफ़ी थे. I mean I was family law के कुछ cases थे जहाँ पे like 10-11 महीने के बच्चे की कस्टडी के ऊपर लड़ाई हो रही थी अम्मा अब्बा के बीच में, which was quite sad to see. बड़े बड़े टैक्स के केसेस, GIDC की जब जजमेंट आई थी सुप्रीम कोर्ट में, आई वाज इन द सुप्रीम कोर्ट जब उन्होंने वो अनाउंस की थी, दैट वाज आल्सो मोमेंटस. सिंध इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट सेस का एक बहुत बड़ी लिटिगेशन थी, उसमें मैं था कोर्ट में. आई वर्कड ऑन दैट केस अ लॉट. तो नस्ला टावर वाली हियरिंग में मैं था, यू नो. सो हैं तो ऐसी चीज़ें तो आती रहती हैं, बट नॉट ऐसा कोई नहीं है कि दैट केस चेंज माई लाइफ और समथिंग. ये है कि इन सारे केसेस में जब मैंने राशिद अनवर साहब को, मखदूम अली खान साहब को, अली अलवानी साहब को असिस्ट किया, आर्ग्यू करते हुए देखा, उनका बिहेवियर, उनकी पोलाइटनेस, एटिकेट्स देखी, दोज थिंग्स रियली इन्फ्लुएंस्ड मी. Instead of what the case was, I was looking at how the people are handling it. You know, I remember I opened the door for Makhdoom Ali Khan Sahib and he thanked me, and I was like,
wow.
Chalo. You know, that made my day. But आप politeness और etiquettes देखें उनकी, you know, और
it's a very grounded attitude, and this is something that comes synonymous with anybody who's climbing up the ladder. Is what we have observed.
देखिए जो नहीं,
not in every hand,
जो नहीं है, he will be infamous for not being that.
Yes.
But most of them are, you know, that just goes to show that you should be as well.
Yes, yes. I've seen the starchy ones also.
वो भी हैं, बहुत ज़्यादा हैं. अब मुझे ये समझ में नहीं आता कि इनकी पर्सनालिटीज़ पहले से ऐसी थी या फिर क्योंकि लिटिगेशन इतनी डिमांडिंग है कि ओवर टाइम दे जस्ट बिकम जेडेड, यू नो. सोचें आप, है ना, क्योंकि मैं होता है कि ये इस बंदे ने जब 15 साल पहले अपना करियर स्टार्ट किया होगा, ये ऐसा नहीं होगा. बट क्योंकि इसने 10 से 15 साल अपने कोर्ट्स में बारी आने के लिए ज़ाया किए हैं या जजमेंट्स में ज़ाया हुए हैं, तो मे बी इज जस्ट बिकम
a bit. You need to walk the talk. You know, you need to have that kind of an aura and personality once you have the necessary paraphernalia that's working for you, right? So then you have to walk the talk in order to get things done.
Of course.
We keep on telling girls also, you need to have you need to have enough thick skin to able to survive in the field if you are pursuing, you know, as an active lawyer.
You have to think of yourself as a brand. You know, you have to invest in it, you have to protect it, you have to protect your reputation as well, that you have to have integrity, you know, you have to build your own brand, and then
Certainly.
फिर उसकी डिमांड बनेगी ना कि यार हमें ऐसा बंदा चाहिए या फिर ये हमारे साथ काम करे या फिर इसको
एलिमेंट आ जाता है ना ऑफ you know, being able to having a face value out there. There's a very active interest that we have observed towards ADR, alternative dispute resolution, as a skill set, as one of areas of learning to explore. How do you think it is important for a lawyer who will eventually thinking of transitioning towards the other side to get an understanding of dispute resolution?
So this is
and this is something that even a non-lawyer can, you know, just.
So this is non-contentious dispute resolution कि आप कोर्ट नहीं जाता, आप mediation या arbitration के through करते हैं.
Yes.
And this is a very important skill to have. This is a very niche market though. Like even if you work in a law firm your entire life, there is a high possibility that you will never be involved in an arbitral dispute. You know, but it's a good thing to create an expertise in, because there is a certain level of demand for it, and courts की तरफ से भी हमें ये नज़र आता है कि they are insisting upon ADR instead of coming to the courts ताकि backlog reduce हो, burden कम हो. Supreme Court justices, chief justices ने emphasize की है इसकी importance, and unfortunately अभी भी काफ़ी companies का और काफ़ी law firms का first recourse is going to the court when ADR and all of these things should be promoted. Pakistan की Arbitration Act is from 1940 that needed substantial revisions and amendments. तो अभी draft arbitration bill आ गया है. I'm not sure if it's been passed or not, but उसमें I'm sure के काफ़ी issues rectify हो जाएंगे and we'll have a smoother ADR process in the country.
Excellent.
So it's an interesting field. It's a niche market. You can become a certified mediator. वो बड़े उसके I think आप लोगों ने भी शुरू कर दिया. तो ये certification तो हासिल कर ही लें. कुछ ना हुआ तो it'll look nice on your CV.
Yes.
So
no, I think it's a very important skill to have. The art of mediation, the art of negotiations, the fact that, you know, they're able to help you become this sort of a catalyst in settling disputes, I think it's a huge deal. So I think it applies to anybody who's, even the audience must may be having a lot of non-lawyers also.
देखें आर्बिट्रेशन का तो फिर भी एक कानून है, मीडिएशन क्या चीज़ है? मीडिएशन तो आपको वही पीपल स्किल्स आ गई, पीपल मैनेजमेंट, स्टेक होल्डर मैनेजमेंट.
Back in our days, still in different companies and institutions, there is a session of that's called focus circles. So there's a mediator sitting in the middle, and then there are focus circles. So that means if any new information comes in, or there's any new project that you will be working on, you sit in focus circles. Or there's a survey to conduct, or there's a survey's outcome that needs to be deliberated upon, to come to a conclusion, then there are focus circles, and they have a mediator as well. So we have been learning this since the time we were studying in our universities, the art of mediation. Coming towards the final question, which will be...
आप ये देखें कि conversation skills का क्या हाल है कि this was supposed to be a 30-minute interview. We're coming on 2 hours now. So almost, I think.
And I thank you immensely for taking out that much time.
No, it's fine. I'm just saying, I'm pointing it out कि once you start an interesting conversation, नहीं पता चलता
time just passes by. बिल्कुल, absolutely. Our students are very fascinated with the names that you are currently and you have been associated with. Now I'm going to leave the plot to you completely to give them a final piece of advice.
You wanted to ask about masters as well.
Yes, I'm coming to that. So there is a certain sort of a dilemma in the heads of the students, whether to pursue masters right after their graduation, or whether to have a network in place. And if they have a network in place and they have a clientele base, it will be very difficult for them to, now be vested into postgrad studies.
Mm-hmm.
How do you look at it? Is it important? I have spoken to enough lawyers who have completely talked me out of it.
They're out of doing a master's.
Yeah, for postgrad studies, for the time being, till if they are not invested in the market and they don't have educate work experience, so if they don't have substantial work experience, their emphasis goes towards that more than getting another qualification. So that has been one of the predominant advices that I have heard. What is going to be your advice on that, and any 2 to 3 basic takeaways that you would like to give to the young lawyers who have now taken up the field of law as a qualification, eventually thinking of taking it and pursuing it as a profession, to not be disheartened by the field and be assured that they are at the right place?
Okay, so जहाँ तक आपकी masters की बात है, you don't need a master's degree to be a good lawyer. That's a fact. A lot of people, a lot of partners, they only have bachelor's degrees. It will help you if you would like to move abroad, or if you would like to transition into senior roles at companies, because it is a hurdle that they see. It's a box they have to tick. आप vacancies पे भी देखेंगे सब हर जगह ये लिखा होगा कि LLM चाहिए, masters चाहिए, even तो जब hire करते हैं बंदे के पास नहीं होता. तो जहाँ तक ये leaving your career and going for your education is a very personal choice that the people who are undertaking it can only take,
True.
But I didn't want to do that, which is why I'm doing a master's from the University of East London, which is also an international external program. Or this is delivered in tandem with UNICAF, which is I don't know how to define it. It's an international scholarship initiative.
Yeah.
तो इन लोगों ने University of East London के साथ कुछ programs बनाए हैं that are designed for professionals.
Excellent.
So that you can work as well as do your master's degree. Or UNICAF के पास बहुत सारे programs हैं, they just don't have law. So I'm doing my LLM with them, and they've also given me a very good scholarship too.
Excellent.
So that's also made it budget friendly. £15,000 इसकी normal fees है. I'm paying £3,000, which is kind of cheaper than my bachelor's degree.
Yes.
So, it's designed in such a way that it's assignment based, and you can do it while you're working. So why not do both? Why not work and then do something like this if you don't want to go and live abroad? I was previously you guys had offered me admission in the bar transfer test program as well, because you could do that while working, but then I left litigation. So then I undertook doing a master's degree. But
No, and
zaruri
thank you so
nahi
much
hai.
for sharing it, because a lot of students think that, there's a certain hype, and that is true also. There's
It's
a certain,
not. You don't need a master's to succeed. It will help you.
No, the barrister degree I'm talking about. That once there's a certain hype with the title when it comes to.
हाँ, ये वाली चीज़ें तो
Pakistan
that's for your
particularly,
ego, right? You want to put a barrister Syed Mohammed Raza Zaidi next to him. That's an ego thing. You want people to say barrister साहब.
Or maybe they think they're taken seriously.
हाँ, like आपको अपने visiting card पे barrister लिखना है, उसकी utility वहाँ तक है. LLM is an academic qualification, like a bachelor's degree. The bar transfer test is like a diploma.
It's a course, a vocational course.
It's a vocational course. It's not like it's not an undergraduate, master's or PhD. तो वो उसमें ये है कि अगर आपको कोर्ट रूम में बैरिस्टर साहब के नाम से जाने तो फिर आप कर लें. But you can also do both. You can do a bar program in addition to an LLM program.
Absolutely.
Or I am, willing to help out. You have my details.
Yes,
you can share it with any lawyer or any student who wants any help. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. Because you need people who have been through this and who've done this and who are still in it to advise the newer generation. It's the greatest service you can do to people is you can tell them the truth. You can be honest. That is the biggest act of service you can do for anyone, कि आप उनको सच बताएं. ठीक है, देखो असल में ये ऐसे होता है, ये वाले struggles हैं, ये वाले successes हैं, और ये वाला attitude तुम्हें रखना पड़ेगा आगे succeed करने के लिए. Which not a lot of people offer. They glean over their own struggles. They present their experience in such a way कि आपको लगता है यार इसने तो कोई गलती नहीं की, या तो इसने तो ये पूरा प्लान किया था. मैं आपको अभी बता रहा हूँ that all of my career, me picking law and all of these things were there's a high possibility that it could have went the other way, that I never picked the law, that I never went to the firms I went to, that I never went to the companies I went to. Everything could have been different, and that would have also been fine. That would have been fine as well. But इसमें जितना लोग आपको मनाने की कोशिश करें कि यार मैंने तो बहुत प्लानिंग करके किया था और फिर मैं इस टाइम पे मैंने ये खाया था इस बंदे के साथ तो फिर ये हुआ था, it doesn't happen like that. Life comes at you in unexpected ways, and you have to make the best of the hand you are dealt, and you will succeed if you have the right mindset and the right motivation. Don't get disheartened. And बहुत unique opportunities भी आती हैं in your career and in your education. I didn't even know about UNICAF 6 months ago. They've been around since 2011. They offer bachelor's, master's and PhD degrees. Online, part-time, made for people who work and with scholarships.
Excellent.
And उन्होंने लोगों को लिंक्स दिए हैं कि आप जाके और लोगों को रेफर करें क्योंकि people don't know about it. और मुझे बहुत शक था कि ये असली है या नकली है. I had to do a lot of research and I had to call a lot of people just to figure out if this is genuine or not.
The name is surfacing very actively now.
UNICAF का ना, हाँ आ रहा है. और अब जब मैंने कुछ पैसे दे दिए हैं, पढ़ाई चल रही है, and when I'm accessing the University of East London's resources through their official website's library page, तब मुझे दागे होता है अच्छा चलो इतना बड़ा स्कैम नहीं हो सकता.
जी.
But
the advice for young lawyers, for now people who are in the field now, making their way in the field or even are studying with us. They're LLB owners in the first year.
I think ये 2 घंटे का advisory session तो होगा इनके लिए काफी.
But
ये है कि if they're studying, they should do some internships. 2 हफ्ते की भी होती हैं, which is nothing. आप अलग-अलग internships, अलग-अलग firms पे internships कर लें, companies में कर लें, थोड़ा अंदाज़ा लें कि किस firm पे कौन से लोग हैं. Get some face time with them, get some people in your network. If you've graduated already, try to work in an established firm. Firstly, don't go with the sole proprietor or someone who is starting out their new thing, because वो खुद अभी अपने struggle phase में, वो पता नहीं तुम्हें कितना सिखा पाएगा या तुम्हें कितनी struggle करनी पड़ेगी. तो जो established traditional firms हैं, जो कॉर्पोरेट भी करते हैं, लिटिगेशन भी करते हैं, वहाँ पे जाओ. And then don't be scared of taking a different decision compared to your batchmates. You know, every field can be rewarding if you have the right mindset. And don't have a defeatist mentality, because it's very easy to get one as a lawyer, because, you know, आपको पता है सारी struggles क्या हैं यहाँ पे. And you have to stay true to yourself. You have to guard your reputation as well. You have to build a reputation first. And you have to stay motivated, and just don't take it too seriously as well. You know, people, when they're becoming lawyers, it just becomes a matter of life or death for them. और ये passion, एक trajectory इसकी कम होती रहती है as you grow older and as you grow more experience. But when you're a student,
it's
you know, सबसे ज़्यादा होती है.
Win the world.
Then intern, then associate, then figuring out new things about the constitution.
Enjoy the ride of life.
You also take it easy, have fun. That's also very important.
You have to be very, very patient. I think the quotient of patience for young lawyers has to be there, especially if they are, you know, going to the courts, because the level, and in the Gen Z culture, I personally believe that, you know, they go to very fast, immediate dips into depression, because the outcome, like you mentioned, they are, you know, very, very keen on getting a certain outcome very fast. You know, and if I'm not going to get things the way I want to, then I might be. There's no point. You know, then the world ends there. You know,
they can. The art of delayed gratification will take you a long way.
Yes.
That's true for Gen Z and millennials, boomers, everyone.
Certainly.
You know, you have to make difficult choices and do hard things right now, so your life is easier in the future. ये तो I think सबके लिए ही है. That's general advice. But
no, it was. I think having you over and bringing a product of our own was, I think, a huge learning for all the students, whether they are, because now Denning is no more just a law school. It is a multidisciplinary school that is a house for a lot of business enthusiasts, computer science enthusiasts, now getting into medical sciences as well. So thank you so much, Raza, for the time. I myself never envisioned that this is going to be a 2-hour-long conversation, and so is smooth flowing. So thank you so much for the time. I think this is going to go down in the best of ways and as one of our guidebooks and guiding lights for the students for years to come. And
you're being incredibly generous
thank
throughout
you so
this
much. Thank you so
podcast, Ms. Adila. I would love to come back if you guys would want me again. Or
of course.
If you want anyone to talk to me as well.
I will poke you and make sure that you do. Yeah, so that is now a responsibility on a lot of alumni. So thank you so much for joining us.
Adila, thank you for having me.
And I think this will open doors and give a lot of clarity for the students from time to time. There is a lack of, I think, a little lack of hope.
They can get in touch with me whenever they want.
You
can share my details with them.
Excellent.
They can look me up on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much.
It's not a problem.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us at the Alumni's Den. There will be more accomplished Denning graduates, which I will be introducing to you through this platform. The objective is primarily for you to ensure that whichever pathway that you have selected for yourself, the only way to make a mark and create a dent somewhere is to just ensure that you give your best and leave the rest on God, to create a pathway for yourself where you can not just shine through the help of your mentors, but also try to create a purpose from everything that you do. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next episode.